Listen, it reminds me, of course, a big topic of conversation this week is going to be the brand new dungeon, Duality. Interesting name, by the way, for that new bit of content. But in terms of flubbing things, Nim. So
Yes.
you helped me clear that yesterday for my John and I's first run.
Right.
So we've been running it again today, trying to get some good gear. It's a lot of fun. I really do enjoy it. We're going to be getting into that. Would you like to know how I saboed us on our last run before we got into the show here?
Oh, please do tell.
Running it, final encounter, getting all up on Keitel. He's doing his glaive thing. I'm doing my fusion grenade thing. I make a mistake of fusion grenading her as she's deciding to leap towards me.
No! Were you running the thing where the fusion explodes twice?
Yes. I blooped myself not only once, but twice. And then it gets worse.
Oh no.
Did you know that the I don't remember their name, the guys you have to take out to activate the bells, the incendiors. Did you know that when they drop their backpacks and you blow those up, that counts as explosive damage?
Yes.
It sure does.
Oh,
It hurts.
Didn't just kill me.
I was running with Rev earlier because it was my first taste of it too, and he was working on his solo flawless, and he's like, the incendiators, man, like those will be the death
I hate
of
them.
Everybody, yeah, everybody hates.
I hate them. Worst thing about that entire. But anyways, I just wanted to let everybody know the gigantic L I got to hold on this nice lazy Sunday of wiping my entire fire team with a single double exploding fusion grenade. That being said, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 306 of the Planet Destiny podcast, your guide for this week in Destiny. We are back once again with our usual roundtable of hosts, the legendary Mr. Nim Plays. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
That's
Ran
good
a
to see you,
whole
man.
lot of that dungeon yesterday.
I noticed. I'm going to need you to run a whole lot more of it because I need somebody to carry me. Someone explosion-proof, preferably. We've got Dan Finity. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, hi. I'm doing pretty spiffy. Can't complain too much.
It's good to hear from you, man. Of course, I am the Black Link, and this week we have possibly the most special guest I think we've ever had on our show. The one, the only, the intrepid Mr. Paul Tassi of Forbes fame. Welcome to the podcast.
300 shows. That can't be true. I can't be the most special.
Listen.
I refuse to believe that, but thank you. It's good to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you along here, and it was really excited when I heard that you were going to be on the show. I guess you and Nim have been having some back and forth conversations about that, which I greatly thank you for your.
I owe Nim after him giving me like 50 million screenshots from Elden Ring and Destiny that I use in like everything I do. So, I was happy to come on.
Right, so well, and again, thank you for joining us. But I'm kind of curious. I want to crack open the door there. How did you two even get into contact?
Nem, do you want to take that? I see you on Twitter a lot. I don't know. That's all I really know.
It was one of your articles when you were first getting into Elden Ring about magic, and it's where I showed you where the meteorite stuff and the locksmith spell were. So that's kind of like where I was like, hey, like I kind of have like no life and been playing this game a lot. If you ever need any like help or anything with it, like just hit me up. And sure enough, that's how
that was invaluable. That changed my entire playthrough. So again, thanks for that.
Yeah, man. Love that game.
Right on. And then of course, with the you mentioned there, Paul, the screenshot thing. Our own Nim here is pretty famous for being kind of a video game photographer. He somehow manages to work some magic, even in games that don't have dedicated photo modes like Destiny, to just get some absolutely incredible shots of different environments out there. And so when I noticed that you started using some of his stuff in your articles, it was like, my boy has made it. He's done it. Man,
we got to get him that Bungie job. I think they're like hiring people like that. So I think he'd be great at that. So you can use me as a reference, I guess.
I applied.
I don't know who would be more qualified in terms of that actual position. So I don't know. Hopefully it'll work out.
I think you should apply again. And then I don't know about you guys. That sounds like a reference to me from Paul Tassi. Put in the references section. Yeah,
It's
Paul Tassi
recorded.
said,
We
I
can
should
send this section to you. You can use that. You know.
You just got to cite the stuff I've used your work in. That's all you need.
I appreciate the kind words.
But right on. So I really doubt that there's anybody who listens to an Enthusiast Destiny podcast out there that doesn't know who you are, Paul. But for the few who might not be affiliated with you, why don't we allow you to introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what it is you do.
Sure. My name is Paul Tassi. I write for Forbes. I have been there about 11 years now, and I do mostly video game coverage for them, some TV and movie stuff for like superhero things or sci-fi things usually. But I have been doing a essentially daily Destiny column for, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years now. So most of the run of the game, there was always just something to write about. It was such an engaged community. So I'm like, I could pretty much write about this every day. As a lot of content creators have discovered, you can also make videos about it every day. And in the past year, I've also been doing YouTube about Destiny mostly also. So that is kind of my thing. And I guess I meme about it on Twitter too. And those are my kind of areas where I distribute my Destiny coverage.
Right. And certainly you've been a big name in terms of Destiny news and all of that over the past several years that this game, really started. In 2014 when the original Destiny came out. And as somebody who's followed games journalism for a long time, I've been reading articles since the days of Nintendo Power back in the late 90s, early 2000s and whatnot. It's almost unthinkable to me that you could have enough content in a game, enough things to talk about that you could have daily articles coming out for years upon years upon years upon years. It's actually kind of mind-blowing to me that Destiny has managed to maintain kind of this level of popularity that it's had. And it makes me wonder, how did you get into Destiny? How did you get started with this franchise?
That's a good question. So like everyone, or at least everyone who's, old enough to have Halo be one of their kind of first formative shooter experiences, I was into that series. I was obviously into kind of Bungie when they were even at the tail end of that by the time they got to Reach, and then they had the whole split from Microsoft. Halo 3 is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm not like a huge competitive player or anything. It was just something I very much enjoyed. I always thought Bungie really had, the best shooting in the business. So naturally, I was going to want to check out their next game. It was just like no one really understood what it was, and like I don't even think Bungie really understood fully what it was when it was launched. So it kind of launched as this very odd kind of campaign, like, but there's loot, but like no one really like knows what's going on. The story doesn't make any sense, but like the shooting's there. It feels very fun to play. And then I think when Vault of Glass came out pretty shortly after launch, everyone was like, "Oh, this is something." Like this is something we haven't seen before. And then kind of, over the years it evolves and evolved and evolved, and now it is what it is today. So it was something I certainly didn't really understand at first. I was not all that into it kind of in year one. I was, a casual player back then, but even then I understood that there was just a lot to talk about with the game, and it has become one of the, premier live service games that exists. It is a living world in which there is always something to talk about. So that makes for kind of a great column source. And playing it as much as I do, I got to turn all that into content, or else I'm just wasting my time, right? So,
yeah. No, and I think that's actually kind of a beautiful way to describe Destiny. I 100% believe that you're right on that about the notion of when Destiny came out. Nobody really knew what type of game it was supposed to be because we had never really gotten something like this. I think over the years, it's taken several years, but Bungie has figured out that identity. They knew they had something. They have immaculate gunplay, great verticality and movement, great environmental design, great encounter design and all of that. And the first time we got a view of all of it coming together in this beautiful symphony, I believe you're right, was Vault of Glass. That's kind of where we first got our hints of, this is what this brand new kind of mixed game genre is really supposed to be. And it's really interesting to see how that's evolved with Destiny 2, with the way the game revamped with Forsaken, and then again here with the Witch Queen, and now we're up into season 17, Season of the Haunted. We've gone through quite the journey with this game, and I think it's in a good spot now. I think Bungie finally has an idea for what they want this to be moving forward, and they've been slowly iterating it, turning it into what it's supposed to be. And I guess that would kind of lead into the question, of course, we had a brand new season of content go live this week. We've got Season of the Haunted, the next iteration of Destiny 2. We've had about a week of it. I guess we'll start with you, Paul. How do you feel about Season of the Haunted thus far?
I feel pretty good about what I've seen so far. I know Solar had a little bit of a rough start there where I guess maybe initially it seemed a little more underwhelming than Void. It might not be as good as Void overall still, and yet I think people are figuring out a number of very solid, kind of interesting builds with it across the classes. I think Warlock especially has discovered some secret gems in there over the past few days with the fusion grenades and stuff like that. So it's getting better. I still think there's some room for improvement there, but I think it just takes a little bit of time to kind of fully flush things out. I think people are going to have to get deeper into the artifacts this season to really kind of go nuts with these builds. Like, if once you get to that last row, classy restoration is one of the nuttiest perks I've ever seen in anything. Like, you always have Wormhusk on essentially, but a better version, like old Wormhusk. As Hunter, you can have double rifts as Warlock. Like, it's insanely good for survivability. And then obviously the resilience changes have been just kind of insane, where it's, hey, do you want protective light on all the time? Well, here you go. Like, just spec into that now. In terms of the other stuff, we're still kind of fleshing it out, but so far, I love that they brought Leviathan back. I'm never expecting a new patrol space in a season. That's not something that happens. So that was a pretty cool development. I played a lot of Containment. It's fun. It's your public events that kill a bunch of yellow bars and stuff, and I think it's fine. I probably am gonna burn out on it pretty quick here, but I think it's good. The first ever mission was interesting, but it's just really nice to kind of go around and explore Leviathan again. Then I guess we could debate whether the dungeon is a part of this season, where it is very thematically and location-wise and lore-wise related to the season, but of course it is sold separately, so that's kind of a new category of things. So that's probably a different topic.
Right. A la carte option.
Yes.
Which is something Bungie talked a bit about late last year, that they were going to be looking to implement some kind of a la carte option for people if they wanted to piecemeal buy that content. Whether or not that's a good idea, I think you're right. It's probably another conversation for down the road. But overall, pretty good overview of season 17. I think I'd agree with a lot of that. I definitely wasn't expecting Leviathan to come back as a full patrol space. That's a pretty massive amount of environment to kind of just dump on people, and it's great to see it come back. It's content that was already in the game previously. It's been gone for a while. That bringing it back now feels at least a little bit fresh. It's gotten the glycan treatment, which lore-wise I think means worse things than what everybody is treating it as right now. But overall, I like it. I like Nightmare Containment. I think it's a fun activity. I absolutely do see myself getting burned out on it, but if I were to talk a little bit about that game mode, it's like one of those things where it takes just long enough for me to get tired of it, and then it ends. Like, by the time you get to tier 3, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the boss and we're about to be done. Whereas if you compare it to something like Altars of Sorrow on the Moon, that goes on way too long, in my opinion. I've fallen asleep doing Altars of Sorrow. It kills me. And then this is like, the moment I get tired of it, it ends. So I don't mind farming it so much. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
Nim, Dan, how you guys feel about it?
I've only touched on the Leviathan like the first day overall in my play. I've been really on the pinnacle grind, so I've just been bouncing around the galaxy, just knocking out pinnacles left and right. So I thought Containment was fun for the first round. I got a what was the Austringer that I got? It was right out the box. I got a Rampage Outlaw Austringer, and I was like, and I'm done. I don't need to do anything else.
So you don't need to play it anymore.
Thank you, Bungie gods. It was on stream, so
don't you need an enhanced Outlaw, enhanced Rampage Austringer?
I'm a simple man.
Okay.
I'll take what I can get. But yeah, it was fine. It like you said, it it goes right up to the line of like how much you're willing to dive in, and then comes off and actually rewards you. So I think it's fine. Leviathan being around, I'm into that. The Sever mission was super cool. I really enjoyed that this week. And just overall, the surprise of everything is really what took me aback. So that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of the containment stuff. Just trying to get some better weapons. I really like the weapon design and some of the perks that come with them today. I got the trace rifle with like a bunch of range stuff and then kill and tally at the end.
Yeah.
And that's been a lot of fun. But no, it's definitely one of those activities where like I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on there unless I'm like actively chasing for something.
Right.
But I mean, like you guys mentioned, seeing the Leviathan come back and kind of, covered with this egregore stuff, whatever it is. It's really cool. I really hope that we get a little bit more insight as to Callus's whereabouts and how he ties into everything, because it seeming like he's another disciple of the Witness.
Mm-hmm. Or he's positioning himself that way.
Right, exactly. The scythe is cool. Scythe is fun. I thought it was going to be a weapon, but that's an relic.
I can't get excited about relic weapons anymore. I just feel like they're cool design, and like Synaptic Spear was cool, but like they're ultimately just relic weapons. So like I think this has happened twice, like 2 or 3 times now. And then the Hammer of Proving was like the artifact, and I was like, oh, we're gonna get these cool weapons that like they're either artifacts or relics or like we all want them to just be weapons, but I get that that's hard. So the scythe is kind of a bummer in that regard. Yeah.
You think I would have learned my lesson after seeing all of those just kind of being used as in mission stuff, but I legitimately thought it was going to be part of like the glaive, family.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I just
you can't do the stabbing motion with the scythe though, because it's like hooked downward, so it'd have to be like a whole new
you'd have to do
kind of thing.
You'd have to do that motion. I don't know how that works. Don't clip that.
Oh, that is getting clipped, Dan. I'm sorry, my guy. I'm going back afterwards.
No, you knew what you were doing.
So it goes.
And yeah, I kind of felt the same way about the Reaper scythe. I think of all the options there, whether you're making it a weapon, turning it into a new super or something like that, having it be the artifact is probably the least interesting, because then it's this reskinned kind of sword, but kind of not, that you're going to get to play with for 3 months, and then it's gone. And I was almost kind of hopeful that it was going to be like a hunter super variant when we got to see it there in the trailer video that Bungie put out earlier in the week. And while it's fun to play with, it hits hard. I like the thematic notion of you reaping enemies and then it's spawning the little lumina orbs that heal you. I think that's a nice touch. I kind of wish it were an exotic weapon. Like, give us an exotic heavy scythe that has the exact same abilities. I'd love that. I think that'd be something maybe Bungie could hopefully look into doing into the future. But I mean, they tie artifacts to these new seasonal things, and it doesn't really take away from anything, kind of like the Synaptic Spear last season, so it doesn't bother me. But I think that was probably the least interesting option that it could have been.
It just seems like a lot of work for something that is like not actual loot. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. Like they said, they're testing Arc stuff with Synaptic Spear, so maybe that's like, maybe these things serve dual purposes, and we'll see something from the scythe implemented in the future. I don't know. Like the scythe heavy attack really reminds me of the Titan attack, so I'm sure those were kind of linked in development, but I don't really get the continued focus on relic weapons lately. But whatever.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
There was a bingo card that was released before the season dropped, and it was like, what will the seasonal activity be? And it's like, do you take ball and dunk it, or do you use relic weapon to kill enemy? And I figured it would be ball and dunk, but yeah, it is both. It is both.
Right, and like I said, it's kind of a reskin of the artifact system that they had for a while, and I don't know, Paul. I agree. Hopefully that this is kind of like the testing grounds for something that they're going to be looking to bring back sometime in the future. You're right. It's kind of a lot of work to make a really awesome looking Reaper weapon that's on theme with the armor and ornaments we've got this season for it to be just an artifact that goes away. But in particular, you know, we talked a bit about Dan mentioned he got himself a decent Austringer, and you brought up enhanced perks. I've heard you have some opinions about the crafting system in Destiny.
It's so weird. It's just getting weirder. Like, the thing I said on Twitter today was like, okay, now we literally have a dungeon that is split between some of the loot is craftable and some of it isn't. And like the loot you would want to be craftable probably is not, the new weapons. And then all the seasonal stuff is, but like by the time you're going to grind out these red frames, you may even just have the roll you want.
Yep.
But you still feel kind of obligated to follow through with the crafting system if you really, really want the enhanced perfect version of whatever your favorite weapon is.
Yeah.
But if you have a drop that favorite weapon that you've masterworked, you can't use that one to grind out enhanced perks. You got to do the starter model, and then you got to do the starter model through 20 level.
It's so weird.
It doesn't fit together. Like these pieces don't quite work both with each other and kind of with Destiny as a whole. Like I said, my solution would be some sort of middle ground where once you get your god roll and like then you activate the like enhanced perk grind. And like, okay, I got my Outlaw Rampage 1. I'm going to get 2,000 kills with this or whatever, do all these activities and unlock the enhanced version of those perks or something. I don't think crafting is great for like, people are saying it's for like, oh, the casual grinder who can just go in, but like, it's not a casual grind at all. It's the opposite of a casual grind.
Exactly.
So I just don't really get what they're going for, and I'm not sure what problem it solves. I think it just kind of negates a lot of the looting and creates these weird splits. Like again, like the raid, you can craft raid weapons, can't craft the adept ones, and the adept ones might actually be worse because the enhanced bonuses might be better than the adept bonuses. And like we have all these different systems now that just don't really work. So I don't know if crafting was the best idea to have, but now that it's here, to be fair, okay, they have done some good things with crafting where at least now it takes no time to go through red bar frames to mine them for minerals or whatever it is. It's like 40 kills, 20 kills, like depending on the type of weapon. It's much faster to do that, and they give more stuff than before. So farming for enhanced perk materials, that part is not bad anymore per se, but just the whole system of like creating this kind of these two disparate goals of crafting the perfect weapon and getting god rolls, but they don't intersect really at all. So I don't know.
So don't get me wrong, like I obviously I play the game, but I've been kind of falling less and less into like reading a lot of the updates or, you know, a lot of those patch notes that come along with, you know, bigger stuff like this. So today was actually the first day that I realized that. So I got my Deliverance fusion rifle up to like level 19 or something, and I was like, oh, now I can get like the enhanced perk that I wanted on it. So I I reshaped it, and I'm like, oh, so now that I have all the perks like unlocked on this particular weapon, I'm gonna go and craft another specifically for PvP. Man. And yeah, you know where this is going.
I already know where it's going.
Yeah, exactly. So I went back to the Enclave, and then I see it was like, wait, hold up. Telling me that I have to restart another one from zero.
Yeah,
all the way back up to. Are you like, no? You know what? I'm gonna stick with this one. This one's great. I'm just gonna use this one and be fine with it.
It's such a confusing system that it almost seems like different teams built different aspects of it at the same time and threw it in there together. It doesn't really make sense for you to go out there, like Paul said. I think you worded it perfectly. You go out there, you get your perfect Austringer. It gets everything you wanted on it. It gets that Outlaw. It gets Rampage. It's got a Range Masterwork, but it doesn't have those enhanced perks. And you're thinking, oh, well, this is a great roll. I unlock it for crafting. I got to start from zero, get however many 2,000 kills with it to build it up to a specific level so I can get access to those enhanced perks, rather than just being able to alter or upgrade the version you got as a drop. There have been crafting systems in games like this all over the place. And you guys know, Nim probably already knows where I'm going to go with this. One of the ones that I directly compare it to is The Division. Division 2, You can get guns as drops anywhere in the game. You can craft a lot of the stuff that you want, but if any gun that you get as a drop that isn't an exotic, you can take it to the crafting table. You can work around with whatever materials you want to put different perks on this. If you get a god roll or a near god roll, just needs that one other perk, as long as you've got that in your recalibration table, meaning you've gotten the perk on a similar gun before and added it to your library, you can go in there and put it like that. It's such a better system than what we've got here right now, where you can basically farm up a god roll, but not have the exact perk you want and have to start with a completely different weapon. Or like Nim said, you craft up this one version, but you want to change one thing for PvP. Nope, got to go start over and make a PvP roll of it. I kind of wish that we could take some of the stuff we've earned as drops so that the focus would still be running the content to get the loot. And then you could go to the crafting table, you could go to the enclave, and from there, maybe for a high material cost or whatever, change one or two of the perks on your weapon or enhance them after you've used it for a period of time. Let us do that with the guns that we've earned by playing the content, rather than having to get 3 copies of this gun to unlock the crafting thing. That's fine and all, but then having to build an entirely new one from scratch every time we want to try a different roll. It's like I said, it seems like it's 2 separate systems that were built concurrently.
I think 2 things would fix this, and like it's relatively easy, at least in terms of how it sounds. I don't know how it is to implement, but the 2 main things I think that would fix almost everything with crafting is the ability to kind of have shared experience across every gun of that type.
Yes.
So if I get a gun that drops today, like on day 1 of season launch, I can at least start leveling that to where the point, fine, you want me to get the 5 red frames, I can still do that. But at least by the time I've unlocked it crafting, I'm at like level 11 for that gun or something.
Yeah.
So that shared XP, and then you can use the roll you want. You can use your Outlaw Rampage for the whole duration if you want. The second thing is unlocking perks permanently once you invest into them. That 100%. Would fix Nem's problem of the PvP roll, because you would just buy the second enhanced perk, and then you can switch back and forth between them rather than it costs a ridiculous amount of, I call them minerals to just switch back and forth between them like it is now. And I think Bungie's even acknowledged that, but they haven't implemented any actual solutions for that yet. So you do those 2 things, I think that really solves a lot of the problems, but I don't know what they'll actually end up doing.
100% agreed. I think that would be a really smart way to kind of handle this, because having to re-level up a gun to get back to those enhanced perks is just, it's kind of an asinine system. It's crazy.
It takes a lot. But I mean, and one thing too is that, this is a system that was recently introduced, right? Yeah. Like this, there's still a lot of time for them to kind of play out and see how to perfect this crafting system without it being a burden, for a lot of players. Because I mean, when it comes to like the I'm going to call them minerals now because I don't know their name.
It's the official term.
Yeah. Like today, for example, like in momentum control, like I had stored a bunch of red border weapons, and I was down to like 1,000, I think. And I went into momentum control and just equipped one in like every slot. And within maybe like, I'd say 2 hours of like momentum, I went from 1,000 to like 5,000 of that particular material in no time. Yeah, exactly. So that's easier now for sure. But it's just a matter of like, all right, let's streamline the actual crafting system a little bit, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might actually. The way that we're talking about it now, it's almost like it does need like a 2.0 cleanup.
Well, I mean, it is 1.0.
Yeah. It is 1. I mean,
I get why there's work to be done. And I mean, it launched pretty hot too. They launched with a bunch of elements they acknowledged almost immediately were useless. And they're like, we're going to take those out next season because they were left over from an even worse version of this. Oof. So like, it definitely needs some work for sure.
Right, but of course, like you said, it's an iterative thing. Bungie seems to be taking a lot of the feedback from this to heart, and hopefully that's something we can see probably maybe next year, a little later than that, whenever they go to work on it again.
I think one of the cool things is that we didn't have to wait like a really long time for them to get rid of those unnecessary materials. Yeah. I think that was actually a pretty fast turnaround. Yeah, exactly.
Some stuff I think they could make permanent perk unlocks a thing pretty quickly. That seems like something that could be implemented pretty shortly. The thing about shared experience across a whole type of gun, that sounds a little more complicated, but some stuff I think they can do to make changes to make it a little more streamlined. Yeah.
And even just having permanent unlocks for specific frames of weapons would be a major quality of life upgrade.
Yes.
In my opinion, because like right now, let's take a little bit of a poll here. You guys in the chat can join in too. How many guns have you crafted since the start of this season?
Since the start of this season?
This season, you got to have some pretty good luck to get the frame. I mean, I've been grinding Nightmare Containment nonstop and getting opulent chests, and like I think I'm at 3 out of 5 for Beloved, and that's it. Like I screwed up one of my upgrades for the thing, so I can't focus anything. So maybe if I did that, I think that's the path to do it. But it's very hard to start crafting stuff this early for sure.
Yeah. I think I literally just unlocked the frame for Beloved today. And I've been running a lot of Nightmare Containment and that kind of stuff to trying to get an Ostringer, and of course the L that Bungie wants to hand me is like, here's all these Beloveds, bro. Oh, you want red bar ones? Even though you're an awful, truly terrible sniper, here you go, man. That hand cannon you want? Nah, B. Nah, you gotta work.
Wait, how many patterns does it take for the Beloved? Because didn't that just come out?
Is it 5?
Yeah.
5.
So they're all
It's
5 now.
standardized.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my god, that's a lot. But
That's a lot.
Okay.
In chat, we're seeing a lot of goose eggs for how many.
I mean, it's almost impossible unless you pick the exact right upgrades and have like literally been playing nonstop. And if the really good luck, it's probably hard to get more than one, if that.
Yeah. I mean, since the launch of weapon crafting, I think I've crafted the weapons that like were easier to get. You know, like the Wellspring stuff.
Oh yeah. Wait, Wellspring weapons were easy to get?
Easier relative term.
Eventually.
Yeah. But and that was just to progress, like the quest line to get the pattern for the exotic glaives. But a weapon for myself, I've only crafted the Deliverance so far. Like one for me. Like I want to craft the Lubrae's Ruin, but that requires a whole ass team.
Oh man, speaking of the exotic glaives, does anybody use them since the update?
Sure haven't.
What are those? Who has gotten them?
I didn't even craft the Warlock one. I got the pattern and I'm like, oh, this costs an Ascendant Shard. No worries.
I got better uses for that.
Yeah.
Same. Like, still kind of underwhelming for this. Tried using the Titan one. It's funny to see a little baby bubble pop up. But it's still, there are better exotic weapons out there than the glaives. Want to see something about that moving forward.
I just haven't invested any time in that grind because the initial outlook was like so underwhelming of them. And I was like, well, if I'm going to spend my time doing something, I'm going to spend it raiding, and that way I can get a cataclysmic or something. That
Well, the legendary glaives are just better too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 3 in the game now, and they don't take an exotic slot, and they're. I like glaives, honestly, I do, but they're never going to be worth using that exotic slot unless I think they dramatically overhaul the whole way those work with the.
They need
charge
to be
it up, hold the thing to activate the perk, shoot the thing, like it's too many steps. So
It's
for an underwhelming ability.
Yeah.
Right. It's very cumbersome for something that doesn't have a whole lot of reward to it. That's why I have
a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Trinity Ghoul is like get a kill, shoot Chain Lightning and everything. This is like 5 steps to do what Trinity Ghoul's doing is like a primary. I don't get it.
Yeah. Though that seems to be the case every season. I wind up whipping back out Trinity Ghoul and then questioning why I ever took it off. Like, why am I making the game more difficult?
So good. Yeah.
This is the artificial difficulty that everybody's been talking about. Not using Trinity Ghoul. That's hard mode. But I guess moving on from there, we should probably jump into some of the big aspects of this ongoing season.
Yeah.
I think we'll start with I'll leave it to you guys. I'll leave it to Paul. You want to start talking about the dungeon or Solar 3.0?
Let's do Solar because that's kind of more universal. So I said this at the outset, but I think Solar was underrated right when it launched. I think everyone was just transitioning from Void 3.0 and the millions of explosions. Also, you have to keep in mind we lost all the Void mods.
Yeah.
Like your old Void builds are probably not as good as you think they are anymore. I mean, they're still good. Don't get me wrong, but like they took out the core volatile rounds perk that made it like really easy to get volatile rounds on any grenade kill. Or no, it was I forget what it was, but it was easier than whatever the current one is. Solar, meanwhile, now it's kind of a new level of adjustment. I think everyone is pretty happy with the way Hunter went, despite the lack of a Scythe super. It's just they really kind of nailed the goal they were going for. Like the gunslinger throwing the dynamite out is probably one of the most fun things in the game now, provided you don't blow yourself up with it. They got huge buffs to Golden Gun, and especially Blade Barrage is super viable now. My existing Ahamkara Spine build I was already using is now just insanely good after the buffs because of all the change of the solar. I just got the new proximity knife thing, which is an instant ignite button, which is good. Titan and Warlock is taking a little more work. I think you have to really lean on some hyper specific exotics to make those work, and I think there's some those don't really live up to the fantasies they projected about Titans are big damage, big explosions. Warlocks are pyromancers and healers. Like there's no healing aspects of Warlock. Like there's barely any healing in that kit right now, which seems pretty weird. One thing I think is not improving about Solar that I think is a universal problem is what they did with Scorch and Ignite. I think that is a really weirdly like not intuitive system where I just thought at first I was like, okay, Scorch is a primer and then you detonate with an Ignite skill. That's like Anthem 101, you know, that was prime and detonate. Or like Mass Effect. Like, but it doesn't work like that. You have to stack it up to 100. Unfortunately, we have no idea what generates X amount of stacks. We just have these kind of nebulous keywords about a few stacks, substantial stacks, like whatever. So that system has felt very strange to try and actually figure out what is going to lead to an Ignite. I was running a Solar Titan build where I had a bounty that was just Ignite, you know, X amount of enemies. And I played an entire run of Nightmare Containment and got to like 20%. And I'm like, what am I doing here if this isn't building to Ignite? Like what am I missing? And you have to like really research this and really lean into like very specific skills or exotics to activate that. And it's just a very kind of not intuitive system because you cannot see how many stacks are on an enemy at a given time. So you're just sort of guessing when they're going to explode, which is not great for, you know, precise moment-to-moment gameplay. I think that should be streamlined kind of from what it is in some way. I don't know the exact fix there, but mechanically, I think that's one of the biggest problems. Is definitely that. There's also some weird stuff like cure is now the heal term, even though cure sounds like it should like cure your status ailments. Yeah. And then there's restoration on top of recovery now, and restoration is kind of just a better version of recovery that can stack. Like the words are all kind of confusing. Like once you put them all together, the kits are fun to play. Fundamentally, I think it's just I don't think the terminology really is there as straightforward as it was with Void 3.0, which I don't think anyone really had that many problems understanding what Void was doing. But Solar, it's like I can read like the whole sheet and still have very little clue as to what's actually happening in combat. So
the fantasy was very clear in Void, and seeing people like seeing it work right out of the box was amazing. With this, it's Solar 3.0 is more. It feels more like a tuning than it does like an outright like redefinition of everything. And I don't know. It's harder to want to play in that fantasy when the first box that you got was very good.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. Of course, this was a major topic of conversation in the community all over the course of the week, with everybody starting out with saying, "Oh yeah, Solar 3.0 is pretty underwhelming," until they started playing around with Blade Barrage, some of the Hunter builds, and then in particular for Warlock, because there's maybe 2 or 3 builds for Warlock that are really viable right now, but in particular, Starfire Protocol and the fusion grenades just dealing absolute mountainous amounts of damage. across the game. But I think that there's a lot to be said for that in some of the confusing terms, of course, with Scorch Ignition. It kind of works like Volatile, but kind of not, in that it has a build-up stacking mechanic. You're supposed to get up to 100 Scorch or whatever before it ignites, but there's no real way to tell
You
how
can't
much Scorch
tell.
you've built up on things.
Yeah.
So you wind up just throwing grenades and melees and hoping that something lights on fire.
So one of the things that I was playing around with last night that I was having a good time with is let me look back to see the name of the thing, because somebody asked me how I was getting it back so fast. So I was playing around with Heat Rises, and there's a fragment that basically allows you to get like your melee energy back when you kill a target that has been scorched.
Right. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the name of that frag. It's Ember of Searing. There it is. And I was just kind of messing around in containment, and the whole like loop to the thing. It's more of a crowd control thing, anyways. But the whole loop to it was eat the grenade, then just hover in midair. Use the snap to kill enemies, and then use Phoenix Dive to scorch them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd pretty much get my melee back like damn near instantaneously with that particular fragment, and that's been a lot of fun. But that's not something that like you're gonna use with like like a boss or something like that. It's very much,
you're not going into Grandmasters with that.
yeah, you're not gonna be floating in midair in a Grandmaster and just kind of like hovering around there, snapping your fingers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to with like I think one of the key strengths there with Void was Devour being so ease of use, essentially, right? Like Devourers just get an ability kill and boom, like you have health regen, vampirism pretty much like until you stop getting kills. But it's a lot harder to tell with Solar, because you can light enemies on fire, but you don't know what that stack is, and they usually tend to die like super fast anyway, so you don't know whether you're actually getting the scorched kill or you're just getting like a regular kill. So it's a little confusing.
Yeah, no, right, and I think that's part of the overall issue here. With Void 3.0, we had a lot of really focused builds come out of that each had their own identity. You had healing builds, you had barrier builds with Titan and whatnot, you had the constant invisibility with Hunter. There's a bit more confusion when it comes out of Solar 3.0. I think overall, Hunters have gotten the best deal of the bunch. There's a couple of really, really powerful Solar 3.0 Hunter builds. I think Titans come in second there. There's, at least in particular, the Lorelei Splendor. Rocking that with 100 resilience makes you darn near unkillable in a lot of bits of content right now. And when it comes to the short end of the stick, I do believe it is Warlock. And part of that is because Warlock lost a bit of its identity with Solar 3.0. You could be a dedicated healer back before this, running middle tree, Well of Radiance, being able to eat your grenade, cast Benevolence, get all of the benefits that Benevolence gave you. There were great aspects there that don't really quite work as well here with Solar 3.0. I think taking away the ability to eat your grenade and turn it into a healing grenade, I think that was a bit of a loss there, by taking away the ability to deal that damage or to create that sort of benefit. There's some confusion with some of the abilities like Radiant, what it works with, what it counts as, because it counts as bonus damage. It doesn't count as empowered damage, so it doesn't sync well with stuff like Starfire Protocol. Like if you get Radiant, that doesn't actually proc Starfire Protocol's special ability to give you grenade and well energy back and all that kind of stuff for getting empowered damage. I do think there needs to be a simplification of some of these aspects. Not to say that, things aren't usable. The Starfire Protocol build right now is pretty darn good, You can just go back. It's actually viable in in-game. You just sit way far back, put on fastball, toss those fusion grenades, you get massive damage, and as long as you're bouncing the abilities right, you get that energy back. But I do miss the kind of variety that we had between running massive damage either in top or bottom tree for Dawnbreaker, or going full support with stuff like Lumina or Boots of the Assembler, with the middle tree that we just kind of don't really have the same access to right now, and I don't really know. I don't really know what
they just
Bungie's
really
gonna do
want you to
about
be
that.
floating as a warlock. That's like the main identity.
Listen,
Be
stick in the
which is
sky.
like fine for PvP, but when
Yeah.
2 of the 3 aspects are about floating, I think that's too much, and I do think they lost a lot of the support class stuff, especially too.
Right. Yeah, no, completely agree. It's almost a little odd that those are fragments rather than just some rolled into the jumps themselves, or even just kind of leaving it the way it was before Solar 3.0 as a part of the whole eating grenades thing. But I don't know. I think there are some. I think there's some improvements that could be made.
I like the idea of like a hunter being able to use healing grenades, because there have been a lot of situations where I could have used them in the past.
Yeah, right.
But like,
it's just so like it's so tough to give up your damage grenade for a full healing grenade that does nothing to enemies. Like, and you have no alternative. I don't know about the decision personally to do that, but
yeah, I completely disagree with them just adding a healing grenade rather than having the ability to consume a grenade and convert it into one. Because without the benevolence there, without all of that, it just feels really out of place, and it more so gimps you in some of that high end content rather than helping. Especially when your teammates can just throw classy restoration on and like, what is your grenade doing now? Nothing.
I think it's strange. It's a strange thing for them to must have tackled, because you have stasis, which was built around the system, and it was built around each class focusing on a specific thing. So you had warlocks could freeze, titans could shatter, hunters could slow, and that entire system worked around that. Void, I think it was a little bit more popular because like Paul mentioned earlier on, some of those mods gave you access to volatile rounds like very easily, and that's very easy to proc. Devour's very strong as is, and that kind of like identifies Void. But when you have this solar subclass that's vastly different on each character, you have warlocks with the fiery angels that can also heal, and then you have titans with hammers and hunters with a golden gun and a knife. To try and make a universal identity between all of them and try to get it to work, I can imagine that only being like super difficult to get all of that. So you have to kind of like strip away from like certain things to kind of like make them work with everything else. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why Solar hasn't been super hot from the get-go. Welcome for that one, chat. Here every other Sunday. And yeah, I think that's probably why we see this kind of disparity with Solar versus how when Stasis came out in Void.
Yeah. So let's tune this then. Imagine you have control over what the future of, say, Solar is going to look like. What would you change to give it its own identity rather than having, Scorch and Ignite being a discount volatile effect and stuff like that? What would you change to make it better?
Honestly, personally, I'm not exactly sure. This is the first time I've used Solar in a really long time. I'm gonna be real with you.
Yeah.
In a really long time. Yeah. So I'm no developer. I really couldn't give like a solid answer on how to make this subclass feel a little, I guess, stronger and identify as it is.
Right.
The thing I proposed, Kevin from Bungie just straight shut down immediately. So my thing was combining the 2 warlock aspects from aerial stuff into one thing. Yeah. And he's like, no, we're not doing that. So given that on the table, I think they got to add some more stuff to each of those. Probably some stuff based on restoration or cure. Like just make one of them like the support thing that even if it doesn't really fit, just put some effects in there, do something, because that's really what they need. I think maybe once we get the final slate of fragments out, I think that'll help. Gotta check in on the counter for how many nightmare runs we need to do to unlock those, which no one knows and no one has any idea. So
I was not aware those were tied to containment, and that's kind of nuts.
Release the number, Bungie.
That was very. I gotta go yell at them some more about that. That was very. I just bug them every couple of days about like, hey, where's that number? And then we still have not seen one. I don't think.
Right.
So. I think once those are out in full, maybe that'll open up even more possibilities. I think designing more exotics kind of around these new keywords could help. I think the hunter one is an example of a good start where the proximity knife becomes an instant ignite button if you hit someone with it. So that is skips all the steps of Scorch and whatever and just instantly does it. I think they do need to do something with Scorch and just rework that to some degree. I don't know exactly how that's going to work with the stacks thing. Maybe even a starting point would be giving us the numbers for what abilities give how many stacks so we can kind of just add it up in our head if we have to. But just something to make that system a little less clunky. I think Ignite as an ability is actually pretty good and different than Void's chain explosions because it's a really big, large-scale damage explosion, kind of different than what we've seen. Like another good use of Ignite is the final, I think it's final row or fourth row mod, where when you stun a champion, they ignite automatically. So that does both big damage to champions and for something like a servitor, blows up all the enemies around them they were shielding. Yeah. So that's kind of a cool use of that. So like I can see the potential in there, but it needs kind of some more cohesion than what we see now.
Yeah, completely agree. I think completely agree with that. Flesh things out a little bit more, give us a bit more control over that, or at least oversight over it, and maybe let us lean a bit more into the identity of being a healer there. Maybe we can join some of those terms together. But yeah, overall, I agree. Completely agree. Well, does anybody else have any thoughts on Solar 3.0 before we dive on in to the duality dungeon itself?
I do want to say one really dumb thing about the Blade Barrage.
Okay.
I was made aware that the aim assist on Blade Barrage now is 400%.
Oh, no.
If you throw a Blade Barrage at Riven's left foot, it will suck toward its mouth with such like velocity that it might pop an eye. And if you do that, you are responsible for the wipe. I'll take the L on that one.
That's hilarious.
So
I would not have guessed that.
Yep. It's super dumb. There's clips out there.
Massive amounts of aim assist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now when everybody dies on Riven, you'll know who did it. Just look for the hunter. Look for the hunter. Which, by the way, that's something I want to say. They brought this whole weekly featured raid and weekly featured dungeon system, kind of like an homage to the Age of Triumph back in D1 with their weekly featured raids. How do you guys like that? I like it. I went and did Shattered Throne this week. It was really fun to go back and blow through that with some Solar 3.0 stuff. Have you guys had a chance to go through it?
I absolutely love it. I did Shattered Throne, and that's probably one of my favorite dungeons. And if they're going to keep these particular like end game activities in the game, this is the perfect way to make them any sort of relevant.
Yeah.
Again.
Mm. I like them as well. I wish they would tune up the power level just a little bit. That way they're a little bit more, because I mean you could just rip through Shattered Throne. Like, you use whatever like butter and just have fun. And it's fine for the pinnacle. But yeah, I would want a little bit more challenge out of the rotator stuff.
I haven't done the new stuff yet, but I don't know. I feel like I personally would need a little more than a pinnacle to go back to it. I guess if there's something I really wanted to farm, I just don't think it's hard to have some of the old raids and dungeons have like relevant loot. Now I know you can farm them now too and stuff like that, but there are very, very few things that I think are, what are you going to farm in Shattered Throne or Pit really? Like it's a little tough. Like they're getting a lot better with that now, certainly, and I think their dungeon loot is really coveted now, but the older ones, I don't know. I think I need more than just the pinnacle to spend, limited time to go back and just do that. But I think it's a good idea in general, for sure.
Right.
I think it's good for variety. But that's kind of it. Because the only thing that drops pinnacle is the final encounter.
Yeah, you get one.
Yeah.
It's just one thing. And that's that's actually a pretty funny point, because I didn't even think about the loot that I got from running Shattered Throne, because it was just a number. Yeah. It was just something to make my number go higher. think.
I mean,
I
that's
yeah.
Destiny Endgame.
That's you know what? Yeah, you're right. It's just about making number get
That's
bigger.
the name. Yeah, number Gerber, dude. Like that's the entire. That's honestly why I stopped interacting with like, or that's why I stopped doing pinnacle grinds because like ultimately at the end of the day, like I'm pretty happy with like a lot of the armor sets that I have, and
Yeah.
I don't need a big number to
Well,
keep.
serious
playing or
question. Like,
enjoy the game.
why are you guys pinnacle grinding? Like, I don't.
I'm
For
personally
master
not.
dungeon. Like, I don't even.
Yeah,
I
I don't
help
know.
people. I generally help people with like in-game activities. And
Okay, so it helps to be higher. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I do it early that way I can kind of rest on my ass later on in the season.
I think they're getting.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get rid of power level someday. Honestly, I think they're going to move to a difficulty system. It's already in so many activities, and they're already taking power out of so much stuff. I think that's the way things are moving. Honestly, but
So yeah, so I don't know if y'all have really like read the thing, but when you go into containment, it has a power level, right?
Yep.
yeah.
But if you're not that power level, they bring you up to
Right.
like a little bit under the recommended. So it's like, why even have that there in the beginning if it's not really going to matter? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I would
It's
agree.
strange.
I think they're trying to move to a post power number sort of system as well. I mentioned that when they announced the Iron Banner change. You know, we've got Iron Banner coming up this week, and power levels are no longer going to matter in that. And I mentioned I think this is going to be kind of the start of Bungie pushing towards that, per power not mattering so much, and them kind of more so relying upon like what they did with the legendary story in Witch Queen by bumping up difficulty that way rather than putting an arbitrary number on things.
Right.
Power level in PvP has always been like the dumbest thing. I never understood why. It's still in trials, but like I've never gotten why they did that. Like PvP is hard enough to balance as is, and then layering power level on top of that, I don't understand.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a good idea. I don't think it's worked, and I'm glad to see it go. Well, all right. Now that we've gotten into some of the in-game talk there, everybody here's had a chance to run Duality, and so I guess for the end of the show here, we'll talk a bit about that brand new dungeon content. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in there. I like that there are some big puzzles to solve in it. I think the encounters in it are a lot of fun. I like that we can farm it right off the bat for some of the loot there. Some of the loot in there is really, really pretty good. I don't know if anybody here has gotten the linear fusion rifle, the 3-round burst linear. It's really weird, but really fun. And I've had a chance to go through it quite a few times. Nim, I think you're probably the guy who's gone through it the most out of everybody here. But overall, what are our thoughts on the new dungeon?
I really did not like it the first run. I thought it was really, really difficult. I'm in that camp, Paul. Sorry. And
Get good, Nam.
Get good.
Yeah. And it was largely like small things that would annoy me from it. And like I think the biggest issue that I have was in the final encounter when you get teleported into the Nightmare Realm where you have to kill the standard bearers. Them having the ability to like boop you off the map is incredibly frustrating. Oh my god! Like I hadn't been that frustrated in Destiny in a really long time. Let me tell you. But once I kind of figured out, my, what loadout to run and, like learn to the, it's pretty much like if I'm teleported there and I'm like low health because of Keitel, like I'm not picking up the standard. I'm getting off the platform. I'm killing the Scion. Yeah. But I'm not picking it up just in case I die, so we don't have to repeat a whole cycle over. Yeah. So once I started figuring out the little nuances in the dungeon and whatnot, I think that like conceptually is really, really, really cool. I've gone through it several times. I've done full arc, full void runs of it. I enjoy it a lot. The lore behind it is really, really cool to see some of the dialogue from Callus to Keitel. Like it gives you that scope of like 0 Hour and Whisper almost with a lot of like the platforming sections. which is something that I really love in Destiny. The platforming has always been one of my favorite aspects in the game. Strafe glide boy for the win. Yeah. But no, I genuinely like it. I think that the mechanics are pretty cool to go navigate between this nightmare version of the dungeon and like a regular version. The weapons are beautiful, like they're insane. And I mean the armor, well, that's a whole nother topic, but the armor's there.
You mean the basic
Never have I been more disappointed to get armor in any activity. I don't think, like, the amount of like effort to armor ratio here is all time low. Like,
so here's the only defense that I can possibly bring up for Bungie is that this is the same thing that they did with Prophecy.
Yeah.
So with Prophecy, where they included the Dido or Dacio, however you want to say it, that particular armor set that had nothing to do with the dungeon itself. I think that's the same thing that we're seeing here. Personally, I think that the weapons and the seasonal armor set more than make up for it. So where I'm just like, okay, whatever, you can put that basic set in Prophecy. But
it's a fun transmog set. Like
it'll be something. Somebody will like it. Dan, do you like it?
I think it's fine. I think
there you go.
some pieces of it. I think there's some pieces of it that are cool. To your point, it does point to a tradition of having Foundry armor within dungeon activity. However, it was pointed out to me today that the Dido set only got added in after there wasn't an armor set in Prophecy, right?
Right.
And that was actually an Eververse armor set that they added in. I'm glad that they're
everyone forgets that. Yeah. That's
so
I don't think this is grand tradition of Foundry armor. I think they did that one time because they're we need an endgame armor pursuit, and then
they have
twice, and it's a tradition, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna have, hopefully down the line, we have that for like whatever the next.
I mean, my theory is they swapped the skull set.
Yeah,
I think they put the skull set in the season, and they
100%
because I think they thought people would have gotten too mad to have like that good of an armor set in a sold separately dungeon. They already were kind of pushing it, I think, with the Thorn set in the 30th anniversary because that was so good.
Right.
But to do that again here, I don't know if they wanted to get the narrative that was going to be such a coveted set only available there. I agree. I think there are some good pieces, and this is definitely fulfilling the we want this Destiny 1 militaristic look or whatever back. It just doesn't fit at all with the dungeon. Like, not even close. People were like,
no.
Oh, you're going on an expedition, so it's going to be like, you're in Callus's brain. Like, it has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
But you're right. The weapons are beautiful. This is the problem, is like, the weapons are so good. It's even worse now when you get armor because you want the weapons so badly. So that's what hurts about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad I'm good.
No, I got that linear, and that linear,
so
dude, it's insane. It's really, really good. I was like, wait a minute. When I first reading through them, like, wait, hold up, a 3-burst linear? Excuse me?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And point for point, if you're landing all crits, which can be a little bit difficult because it flinches everything it shoots. It does around 30, maybe about 40% more damage than other similar archetype linear fusion rifles. It's definitely a top tier damage option. And also, I have to say, I'm glad I'm not the only person with the conspiracy theory that skull armor was absolutely the dungeon armor and got swapped over to being a season pass ornament set. That was the first thing I thought when we saw this dungeon. Like, wait a second, something's not matching up here. But
I think a good middle ground would have been like a corrupted Callus set. Like, take the Leviathan armor and then just put a bunch of crap on it, and then I think that would be better, honestly, for a bunch of spores and things. Yeah.
Oh man, you're gonna have me walking around smelling like egregore? Ugh.
Yeah, the Destiny universe smells gross. We all know this.
Well, as our good buddy Aura, pinned the theory, you never see our guardians go to the bathroom because our bathroom is in our suit.
It transmats out. Out.
But yeah, I like duality. I think the encounters in it are fun. I like the mechanic of swapping between like a normal dimension and a nightmare dimension. I think it works pretty well. I'm definitely with you, Nim, if my story at the beginning of the show wasn't any indication, the incendiaries and the amount of things that can kind of push you really frustrates me as a warlock. I basically just had to learn that in that last encounter, when you're getting ready to go into damage phase, you're spawning in to take out those standard bearers, don't jump. Just do not, under no circumstances are you allowed to jump until you've cleared the absolute complete path in front of you of everything that can push you away. And so that, that frustrates me, but that's not really so much a knock against the dungeon. I think it's fairly well crafted. I like the lore and story that's behind it. I like the miniature jumping puzzles. I think it's properly timed, kind of like Grasp of Avarice is, in that it doesn't take up a bunch of time for you to get it done if you know what you're doing. And the loot in it is great. The weapons are phenomenal. I've run through it a couple times trying to get my hands on a decent roll of the stasis grenade launcher for it, since it seems to have some crazy perks tied in. But I like it.
Dude,
I like to.
I really want that pulse with headstone on it.
Oh yeah. It can roll Desperado. I found that out today. What do you mean? Yeah, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in there.
The best thing that we kind of we were talking about today on stream was that there, in the normal version, there's not a champion to be seen, and the difficulty level at normal, with how oppressive the presence of the ads are, is almost perfect for difficulty level for other activities. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, well, I'll defend. Okay, so I said it was easy on Twitter, and everyone got mad. In my defense here, the reason I said that, I think the central mechanic is easy to understand, maybe compared to some past dungeon mechanics. I think the swapping back and forth and doing the standards, I think that's relatively straightforward. I think there's some weird things that can happen with it, like things damaging the bell that aren't supposed to, and that's bad. But I understand that the enemy density is way up there, and I think that's a good thing generally, booping aside from the incinerators. But I also think that this season we have more defensive abilities than we have ever had in the game before. And I think, not saying you guys, but like I think some people are generally not really understanding the full extent of like how kind of crazy things have gotten with defensive capabilities now. Oh yeah. Taking resilience to 100 is a permanent 40% damage reduction. That is insane. Like everyone's complaining about, there's a lot of ads. Ads don't do any damage to me though.
They don't do really.
And then we have Classy Restoration, which is instant super heal on demand whenever your class ability is up, which is all the time on most builds. That is just permanent healing. I know a lot of people have not unlocked it yet because it is in the last row. And then we have just our usual double, I don't know what it is now, Solar and Void maybe. I think this season for the seasonal mods you can put in your chest. So that's 40%. I don't know which of these things necessarily stack, but I do know when I put all of them on, I don't die unless I'm falling off a ledge. You know what I mean? Like, I really feel like they have opened up, which I think they needed. I think one of the biggest problems with Destiny for a while has been damage mitigation and like why GMs just feel brutally oppressive sometimes, and like why you have to stay at range for a lot of them. And like, no, that's not viable in GMs because like you can't get within 10 feet of an enemy because you'll instantly be killed. Like, I think they are trying to mitigate some of those things. So I guess proportionally for me, this felt easier than some past dungeon I'd run for the first time because of the tools in our kit that we have now and the stuff I have kind of like last row perks. That definitely helps too. I thought it was the right amount of challenge minus a few kind of hiccups I think they could fix with kind of mechanics. But I very much enjoyed it start to finish for sure.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed. I think it's an interesting challenge, an interesting dungeon. Not the hardest thing in the world, definitely not. I think the encounters, especially once you understand the mechanics there, pretty simple to get through. It doesn't take long to get to damage phases on the first boss. It doesn't take long at all to get to damage phase on Kaitel once you know what you're doing. And yeah, damage mitigation. You can legitimately get up to 100% damage resistance by mixing in a 100 resilient for that permanent 40% damage resistance, something like Armor of the Dying Star, which is the I think Void and Solar resistance thing we got now, and then just popping a super. You can stand there and not take damage from anything. It's pretty ludicrous, and that's not even counting the recovery stuff like classy restoration and all that nonsense that gets brought into it. But overall, I like the dungeon. I think it's a good time. I'm gonna spend some time farming it. If you didn't know out there, there's a bit of a well, Bungie hasn't said anything about it, but we're assuming it's a glitch. You can run master mode for infinite pinnacles right now, if you care about getting to 1570. I don't know why you would. There's nothing that really requires it outside of maybe grandmasters.
Look, I want to be lazy later.
You know what? Good point. Go ahead and farm it up. But yeah, I like duality. I think it's a good bit of content. I'm looking forward to playing more of it. But all right, with that, yeah, and take me with you, Nem, because you carried me last time. I need it.
Oh, absolutely.
But with that, I do believe that brings us basically to the end of the show here. I think before we get on out of here, we've got a couple of audience questions, plus a few that we, I think, curated for our guest, did we not?
Yeah, so I have a total of 3 questions here. One's a 2-parter. But yeah, this was brought to us by fellow teammates here. Hold on one second. I got to look these. We have questions from Jade and Kaz.
Yeah.
One of them was, what sort of, this is for Paul specifically, what kind of research do you employ when writing articles? And what made you want to create a YouTube channel?
Oh, okay. Research, it depends on the article. For longer stuff, that may require a lot more work if I have to talk to specific people, if I have to go through comms departments and things like that. For stuff that's just kind of like general news items, that just is kind of just fact checking to make sure it's not total BS, and then kind of doing my own take on it. So that's not necessarily an outrageous amount of research. I try to generally stick with games that I am at least familiar with myself. Like you literally cannot be an expert in every game. So I write so many Destiny articles because that is the game I am, the most familiar with. So I still get stuff wrong. I had something wrong in an article today with my Starfire build. They're like, no, you're totally wrong about why it's proccing grenade restoration. I'm like, oh, well. So I still screw stuff like that up frequently. But I do try to be familiar with kind of most of the games I cover. And if it's something that's totally kind of outside my wheelhouse, I will have to do at least some level of research to make sure what I'm saying makes sense. The second question, why did I start a YouTube channel? Honestly, the main driver was I kept doing podcasts like this with video and audio components, and I had a good time doing those. And obviously, I have a lot of kind of content creator friends that I've gotten to know online, and like everybody's willing to show me the ropes, and everyone's been very helpful. I had kind of a cheat code because I know how hard people work to build their YouTube channels, but I'm able to just be like, guys, I have a YouTube channel, and then just port some people over from like Twitter or wherever to like kind of instantly get some sort of a base. So that was kind of encouraging to have at least a built-in audience from moment one for me, and that kind of helped me stay motivated. I really realized that YouTube wants you to make like a daily video to stay in the algorithm, so that's been a little bit of a grind, but I do enjoy doing it. And you just, as a journalist, like you kind of have to be half content creator these days to like kind of stay relevant in some capacity, because that's just the way everything's moving. I think there's certainly a place for written content, still, and there always will be. It's just you kind of got to do multiple things now to stay in the game, and it doesn't always work out. Like I'm not like a TikTok star or anything, certainly. Like I have my limits, but that's one thing I have decided. It took me way too long. I should have done it like years ago. That's one regret I have, is not doing it sooner. But I have enjoyed doing it so far. Yeah.
Well, now you're a dad too, so there's that work-life balance included with that.
Yes, that work-life balance. Yeah. If the first thing that has suffered is less YouTube videos, that is the hardest thing to orchestrate. So.
Let's see here. We have a question from Austin 8 or V2 Games. So seeing what happened to Callus, do we think that the Leviathan is going to destroy the moon, seeing what it does, mostly destroying planets? I mean, the moon would be the next one on the docket, right?
I mean, I don't know how relevant the moon is by itself these days, and if they have to keep content vaulting stuff, it does seem like it would be potentially on the chopping block as the next zone to go. But I don't know. I'm never in favor of deleting things, so I don't know how I feel about that.
Isn't Nessus still in the game?
Nessus is still in the game.
Wait,
I think it can go. I think we're done with this.
I went there for a Lost Sector once, and I was like, "Oh, you're still here."
That's my favorite Lost Sector area. There's one in the Artifacts Edge that I go to all the time. But
Yeah.
I think EDZ or Nessus would be like the more logical option, just because they ripped all the story content out of there essentially.
Right.
So there's not much left there. I guess losing Nessus would be the single mission I've done the most in any video game in history is probably Inverted Spire. I've been running that since the alpha. That was the alpha strike or beta.
Yeah.
And that has not been cut from the game. I have run that, I don't know, 100,000 times at this point. It's insane. So can't lose that.
Yeah, I'm definitely on team don't vault content that people have paid for. I still find that to be kind of this somewhat weird radical thing that's happened in Destiny, to think about these planets and content and activities and whatnot that are in the game have just kind of disappeared. But if they are going to continue vaulting content, I think Leviathan's probably the perfect excuse to kind of push that forward.
Yeah, so that Callus can just become a big old moldy daddy.
He kind of already is.
Yep.
Well, but in contrast, though, I think Leviathan is a permanent addition now, at least for a while. Like, I don't think they're going to delete Leviathan after this year. I mean, even though it's seasonal content, quote unquote, I don't think you do all that work. Not only that, I think they're going to bring back the raid in some
100%.
They have all the areas. They're all there, literally.
They're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you do Sever, you end in the Gauntlet. Like, I don't even know what's missing at this point. I think they redid everything. So it's be kind of weird if they didn't do like a reprised version of that raid.
It opens up the possibility of adding more places to the Leviathan, because the Leviathan is just this massive world-eating ship, you know?
Right, yeah, and Bungie's talked a lot about bringing back old content. They talked about bringing back some classic raids. They still haven't told us what those classic raids are. I think there's been a lot of speculation about that. But it very well could be the Leviathan, because like Paul said, they
did say Destiny 1, I think,
when they were like,
yeah.
The one we're getting for sure next season is either King's Fall or Wrath of the Machine. We know that. I think it's King's Fall, but
I think it's King's Fall.
I think Bungie has seemed to have forgotten that Siva exists.
No. They're gonna do a Siva season. I guarantee you. Eventually, maybe this year, maybe not, but I guarantee you there'll be a Siva season.
Hopefully, because it's been a minute.
Yeah. Does anybody remember my man Rasputin? He's just sitting on he's sitting on Anna's thumb drive. Like,
I think we're getting a Rasputin season this season or this year. I don't know if it'll be a Siva season, but I definitely think we're getting a Rasputin season as one of the remaining ones for this year.
So you think that might be what they end the year out on?
Maybe it could be next season, but it might be the penultimate one. Yeah,
I'd take it.
That would be huge.
I miss that Russian robot.
This question. So, combining these together, because they kind of make sense. They tickle my brain in an interesting way. So we have Baja Blast GF. Curious what class everybody is keeping an eye on for Arc 3.0 and why. And then Black Vox asks, do you have any reservations on Arc 3.0 after Solar's implementation?
Hunter, because Arc Hunter has been just the worst forever. I mean, especially in PvE. Like, I just have never once enjoyed using that class, I don't think, for any reason. So I think that definitely needs the most help. Hopefully they kind of realize that and they're going to do something elaborate with it.
Yeah.
Hesitations, I don't know. I mean, I guess the whole like special verb thing, but I'm curious kind of what they said they want it to be about speed, and I think right now mobility needs help because it is just not. Why would you build into mobility right now? Like, there's got to be some sort of additional reason given there that might extend to kind of the movement speed boosts of Arc. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. Like, why should I go to 100 mobility? Like, they just gave us, before this, everyone always had a reason to be 100 recov. Now everyone has a reason to be 100 resilience. Mobility, it was just for hunters and dodging. So that's kind of what I'm curious to see the most.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. It's always kind of an interesting bit of conversation to see how they're going to differentiate Arc 3.0 from what we have with, Void 3.0 and Solar 3.0. What sort of power fantasy are they going to lean into there? When I look at it from a Warlock standpoint, a lot of Arc was based on chaining abilities. Use your melee, get your grenade. Use your grenade, get your melee. And chain lightning in between enemies. But, Void and Solar kind of do that as well. So I wonder what they're going to lean into there. When it comes to Hunter, the agent of chaos in me just says, hey Bungie, go back to like 1.0 build of D1, take the Arc Hunter, Control C, Control V that here in D2, and make them a monster in PvP. But honestly, I really don't know. I don't know how they take the Arc identity as it is in D2, where the biggest thing I can think of is chaining lightning in between enemies like you do with Trinity Ghoul. How do they take that and make entire classes based around it? Me? I don't really know. Maybe focus on ionic traces for everybody? Who knows?
Ooh,
I think hunters need a full-on new super. Honestly,
Yeah.
I do not think they can have just a couple variants of like Arc Staff where one can reflect things and one can't, and that's it. Like they need a completely separate one. Warlocks and Titans have a completely separate super, and I think that was a mistake not to give hunters that when they did the whole new subclass thing way back when.
Agreed. So what would you like to see as like a new Arc Hunter super?
Just throw the staff and just single shot. I don't know, like synaptic spear. There you go.
Yeah. Turn it into the synaptic.
Yeah, something like that.
That could work, right? Because we have the Titans run around shoulder charging things or just yeeting themselves into it. Warlock's got something really cool with basically Kamehameha and tickle fingers.
Maybe that's why they did synaptic spear. Maybe that was testing the whole.
They did say that was testing.
That makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, that might be it. I would take that, and give the hunters blink back so that they can be even worse.
Oh, no, that'd be terrifying. No, you don't put that evil on me.
Let's go.
No, they're definitely gonna get blink back. I guarantee
it's gonna happen.
I think all classes will get access to blink in our 3.0.
Yeah.
There's no way a Titan.
I think so. I think it's possible.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
Oh no!
Blink Titans, they're coming. All right, that part I'm less sure about, but it's not impossible.
They'll figure it out.
Terrifying, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing him as an anime, just popping up, just zooming around.
Teleporting Titans.
Yeah.
Ooh. Teleporting shoulder charge. Interesting.
Oh,
Could be interesting.
Just passing right by. Yes. Yeah, that's all the questions fit to print.
Well, all right. All the questions fit to print. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that does bring us to the end of episode 306 of the Planet Destiny podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and a very special thanks to our special guest, Mr. Paul Tassi. I just thought of the question that I wanted to ask you at the beginning of this,
go for it.
I'm going to do it anyway. It's actually a two-parter. I want to know what your favorite game of all time is, and what your favorite exotic in Destiny history is.
Oh, God. You got to give me this ahead of time. All right, favorite game of all time could be Super Smash Bros. 64. I think I've played that literally more than anything in history. I mean, it could be Destiny, honestly, at this point, given how much I've sunk into it. I've certainly invested a large chunk of my life into it, so it's certainly top 3. Favorite exotic of all time. Man, that's tough. In D1, it was probably Icebreaker, just because that was my first exotic, and I used that for so long, and then they're never gonna bring it back because it destroyed every meta. Man, I gotta think. I'm really liking Osteo. Like I don't know about all time, but I have a hard time taking Osteo Striga off. In terms of actual usage, La Monarch is probably up there. I really love La Monarch for PvP and PvE. That has gotten an insane amount of use. I don't know if there's one armor specifically at this point, but those are probably some of my top weapons. If I have to think of an ultimate one, that might be a little harder, but
no, I'd say great choices all around. The Monarch is great. Osteo works for so many different things. It's just such a weird, unique kind of submachine gun in the game right now. And
Outbreak,
of course,
that's up there. Yeah.
oh, Perfected.
I like AOE weapons is the thing I'm saying, but
I dig it. All top tier choices, man. And Super Smash Bros. 64, definitely top 5 all time. 100% agree with that. But all right, again, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It was an absolute pleasure to have you aboard. You've got incredible insights into the game. I think you've got some really good ideas when it comes to the crafting system, to the way that Bungie could potentially revamp Solar 3.0, and even some of the higher end content in the game. It's been a pleasure to have you aboard, man.
yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
No, absolutely, man. Anytime, anytime. But before we get on out of here, I do want to give you the opportunity to let everybody know where they can find your articles, where they can find your YouTube channel. We want to get everybody out there to sub to you so that you are pressured into continuing to make daily content.
Sure. I'm at Paul Tassi on Twitter. That's where I'm at the most. You could just Google my name for my articles or Google Destiny. They might probably show up through that alone. YouTube, I'm just Paul Tassi on YouTube. I don't have like a fun alias like cool content creators. It's just me. So it's pretty easy to find me if you just know my name.
Trust me,
Right.
I'm sure that's actually a blessing because you can ask our very own Mr. Danfinity / Flannel T, where the I's are L's in multiple different locations.
She still won't answer my emails about paying for the name.
I'm sorry, buddy.
You'll never get it, man.
I'm never gonna get it.
But right on, make sure you guys go and check out Paul Tassi all across the interwebs. Incredible resource for Destiny information. Make sure you go and check him out. Of course, the rest of us are going to be getting on out of here as well. So, why don't you show your stuff, Nim?
What? Oh, I don't have a whole lot of stuff to shell, but if you want to look at some pretty decent screenshots, you can follow me over on twitter.com/nemplays and the occasional random sporadic stream whenever I'm not tired from work over at twitch.com/nemplays.
Right on. What about you, Dan?
Hi. My name's Danfinity. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and the TikTok at Danfinity, where the eyes are L's. You can also find me on Twitch 3 days a week, twitch.tv/Danfinity, helping folks out with in-game content and probably the new dungeon over the next week. So that's pretty much it from me.
That's it. Make sure you go and check him out, Mr. Twitch partner himself, Danfinity. And of course, I am the Black Link. You can find me pretty much anywhere on the internet, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all at the Black Link. This week's going to be a lot like last week, and that means if you're looking for stuff on my channel, look elsewhere. I'll just be doing the usual stuff over on the Planet Destiny YouTube channel at youtube.com/Planet Destiny. We got the news videos, the guide videos, and all the kind of stuff going on there. Working on a few build videos for Solar 3.0 for the Planet Destiny YouTube channel. Having a lot of fun making the Titan build. It's just complete resilience and invincibility in all but the highest level content. It's going to be pretty crazy. But that's it for episode 306 of the Planet Destiny podcast, your guide to this week in Destiny. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.